Shelby Oaks is written and directed by the one and only Chris Stuckmann. Now, you might be wondering if you've never heard of Chris Stuckmann before, but Zack, why do you call him the one and only? Well, it's only because this guy is pretty much the benchmark and the influence, not just for me, but for every single other colleague that I've met along the way on this YouTube journey over the past 5 years. And this guy's story and what it took for him to get here, the backing that went into this film, it's nothing short of inspirational. So we follow a woman named Mia, played here by Camille Sullivan, whose search for her long-lost sister becomes an obsession when she realizes a demon from their childhood may have been real, not imaginary. And it all centers around a haunted ghost town called Shelby Oaks. Now, those of you who don't follow Stuckmann, you should know that this guy adores the horror genre. Hell, I love the horror genre. Lots of folks love horror. My buddy Jacob Hubbard, shout out to you, who also wants to become a filmmaker, loves horror. And the fact that this thing, with its Kickstarter of $1.2 million being raised for this thing, and then Neon picking up the distribution rights for this so we could see it in theaters, Mike Flanagan stepping in as executive producer, it's clear that the studio and Flanagan saw some potential in Stuckmann. Whew. And you know, after sitting through Shelby Oaks, and listen, this is a very breezy movie to get through, only sitting around an hour and a half. If anybody's coming in here and expecting some grandiose spectacle gore fest horror, no, don't expect that. Because at the end of the day, even though Neon did distribute this, this is still an independent film. The budget that it had totaling around like $3-4 million, something like that, Hollywood considers that penny change. So the fact that Stuckmann is making this movie look as impressive as it does, mad kudos to you, my friend. Because I'm going to start off with my positives and say that Stuckmann's direction is spectacular. For lack of a better term, it's spectacular. It's clear that he loves the genre and respects the art of filmmaking. And you can also certainly see the Shyamalan influences in there with some long, wide takes, really focusing on the actors' performances, while not really using a whole lot of crazy editing tricks to get there. Like, I was blown away. I'm so proud of Chris Stuckmann. This is so cool. Cinematographer Andrew Scott Baird deserves a massive amount of credit because it almost feels like there's two different genres that this movie is playing around with. A good chunk of this movie does feel like your traditional horror movie, but it does something really clever, I think, especially in the first act, with the art of found footage. Now, found footage horror movies, if you've seen one, chances are you've probably seen them all. A lot of found footage horror movies look grainy. They look pretty much identical. I'm not going to give away exactly what Stuckmann is up to here, but I think the stuff that he is doing, tinkering around with the idea of found footage and how we ingest the found footage. And I did mention that he does get a lot out of his actors in this movie, the majority of which he gets out of Camille Sullivan, who plays Mia, our lead. And it definitely feels like with her performance, it's almost like an amalgamation of what Toni Collette did with Hereditary, and it meets up with Naomi Watts in The Ring. I think if you merge those two characters together, you get this woman. And I definitely appreciate, a lot like Hereditary, this film is very central focus on the family drama. As all the greatest horror movies I think should do, it really centers in on what could actually be frightening and what could actually happen in real life. Because yes, even though there are absolutely some supernatural elements to this film, and yeah, I also see what you did there. Riley Brennan, the character, is one quarter of a team called the Paranormal Paranoids, who are YouTubers. Because yes, of course, YouTube reference in Chris Stuckmann's feature film debut. But yeah, I mean, lots of good actors in this movie. You have Keith David in here in a very small part. He's very good. Brendan Sexton III is really good. Julia Dern, I believe, is the name of the actor who plays the sister that goes missing. And she was really rock solid in this as well. Again, there's not really much of a weak link in the acting department. And I sense that there's a lot of ideas that are spinning around in Stuckmann's brain. And a lot of them have been brought to life in a super creepy way. And I think he's also kind of disrupting Hollywood in a sense, especially in the horror genre, because a lot of mainstream horror movies, they don't really understand the idea that a jump scare is supposed to actually, like, jolt you out of your seat. I think there are a couple of jump scares in this movie that legitimately did that. Like, I swear to God, I did not see some of that stuff coming. And then you also start to see, like, little things happening in the corner. And you're like, there's something there? There's something there? And then you get a closer look. There's something there. And then you get an even closer look. Oh, shoot. There it is. But yeah, especially as you dig deeper into the movie in the third act especially, you start to see a lot of super demented and deranged stuff go down. You kind of start to see and unravel the mystery that Stuckmann has created here, which is a very compelling mystery, and I was drawn into it. But some of these reveals and some of the shocking images that you get in this film, they could leave your jaw on the floor. Like, I can see a lot of people getting very unsettled by the stuff they see in Shelby Oaks, because damn it, I was. And even though Stuckmann does have a lot of really neat, cool ideas here, that's kind of where my constructive criticism starts coming into play. Now, I know I have to take off my rose-colored glasses here, even though I love Stuckmann to pieces. This movie, I don't think is perfect. I don't think it's the scariest movie of 2025, especially in a very crowded year in the genre. I think this movie does have some pretty... I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but the screenplay of this, like, left me with a little bit of questions leaving the theater. Like, especially when a certain reveal happens, it almost feels like this situation was a bit too convenient. Like, you just happened to come across the one thing that you were going after, and it happened to be, like, maybe 50 yards away from where you were. And then if there's one other thing I will say, the ending of this movie, I won't spoil it by any stretch. Part of me kind of wishes that this movie was left a little bit more ambiguous to an extent. Because it almost feels like, you know what this ending reminded me of? Hereditary. And I know, that is a very, very glowing comparison, but hear me out. The ending of Hereditary for a lot of people, and I've talked to a few of my friends who are looking to see this movie, and a few of my colleagues on YouTube, they did say that the ending of this left a little bit more to be desired. And I don't disagree with them, honestly. Because when you see the ending happen, and then the credits start rolling, you want to start to ask why. But similar thing with Hereditary, it almost feels like it was telling you, this happened because. And actually, there's a few points in this third act that are like that. And he's very smart about showing you through imagery and not necessarily dialogue the stuff that was going on. But it's almost like when you meet the villainous characters in this movie, the motivation just feels like it was severely lacking. Like, yeah, maybe because it's supernatural, it doesn't need to be thoroughly explained. But I think in this context, maybe a little bit more exposition on why these characters are doing the things they're doing would have helped it. But those are my criticisms. Honestly, it's not necessarily a poorly written screenplay. It's not even a bad story either. Like I said, it's a very compelling mystery that Chris and his wife Sam set up in this. But you can bet your ass that the next movie Chris Stuckmann makes, I will make every extent of effort to be there on day one to support him. He honestly continues to show himself to be an inspiration, not just with his background and how he got into YouTube and into filmmaking, but the fact that he is betting on himself like this. It takes a lot of courage to do that. And I admire the hell out of him for this debut, and I thought it was very impressive. I can't wait to see what else he does in the genre and in filmmaking in general. I'm actually kind of curious to see what he does with a script that somebody else wrote. Like, could you imagine Stuckmann taking on a Stephen King adaptation? That would look really breathtaking, in my opinion. But all that in mind, I'm going to give Shelby Oaks a B+. Yeah, far from the worst horror movie of the year, but it's definitely not the best. But you know what? This is a first-time director. I'm not really expecting the best horror movie of 2025, if I'm being honest. I'm just very, very proud of how far Chris Stuckmann has come. And please, if you are into YouTubing like I am, if you are wanting to become a filmmaker and you want to feel inspired, you're going to pay money to go see this in a movie theater. Especially with this coming out a week before Halloween. Ideal time. And there's no better time than any time to support independent horror. Well, let me know what you thought of Shelby Oaks, all down there in the comments. I love getting in front of this camera and talking all things movies with you guys on the regular. If you're new, hit that subscribe button and tap that thumbs up as well. That would be greatly appreciated. Stay tuned for more videos hitting the channel very soon as I continue to try and crank out more in my Halloween playlist. Y'all are the best. Thank you so much again for tuning in. And with all that being said, Back Talk, commence.